Oh, he's the shove-it man. Oh, he's the shove-it man.
Alright, it's the leader of the squad. Don't talk, just nod. Nick Aldis is a polarising figure in wrestling. You're going to find out why he's viewed negatively in this video today. He is seemingly somebody who has all the tools to succeed in wrestling and be a main event player, but for some reason that's just never happened. I'm making this video now because Nick Aldis has finally made it to the WWE after a decade and a half, and I'm sure there's a lot of WWE fans out there who won't be familiar with his work. Don't worry, the Hawk's got you covered. On a personal level, Nick Aldis helped me in the early stages of my YouTube career, but today we have to put sentiment aside because we've got a Patreon request from Dexter Shepherd who asked if Magnus was any good as a main eventer. If you want to make the Hawk talk, sign up today. Magnus in the main event, was it money well spent? Nick Aldis was in TNA as Magnus for years, since the good old days of 2008. For a long time he was just a green guy learning behind the scenes. He was seemingly only on TV for his looks, and he was usually associated with more experienced talents. He had a couple of tag title reigns here and there, not a lot else. It's rumoured that Dixie had a real hard-on for Magnus, so that's why he got so many chances.
I am a gladiator. I don't need armour. I don't need weapons. I am my own weapon. I am Brutus Magnus, and my time for glory is upon us.
Right, so we need to find the right place to start from when Magnus became a main eventer. The year is 2013 and the Aces and Eights were as a big faction storyline in TNA, and Magnus was a man who would often fight them alongside Kurt Angle and Samoan Joe. They eventually invited him to join the new main event Mafia, even though he wasn't a main eventer. He might not have been a main eventer, but he did win a lot in 2013, especially as he made it to the finals of a tournament before losing to AJ Styles. He was getting so much TV time at this point as he tried to prove to Sting and Angle that he belonged in their group. It was decided that these two were going to have a little match so Sting could give him a chance to prove his worth, so this is where we'll start today's main event run from. At Bound for Glory 2013, Magnus and Steve Borden would dance. First, a pre-match promo. Magnus tries to put over the match and make it clear that he doesn't care if he gets booed against Sting. It's a confidently spoken promo, but for some reason it's just kind of boring. It doesn't hype you for the match, it sends you to sleep. Sting is going through one of his TNA t-shirt phases. It's funny that back at this time everyone was talking about Sting being too old to create a start of Magnus, yet he's still just about going today. This match is supposed to be like Flair vs Sting with a passing of the torch moment. The match is mostly slow, with the audience sounding restless throughout. Magnus eventually makes Sting tap out as the crowd are a mixture of boos and silence. This match just wasn't the one he needed to put his career on the map. But you've got to forgive him a bit. I've heard in shoot interviews since that a lot of time got cut from this match, and he beat a legend cleanly, so he's on the right track. Aldis also has a new wrinkle to his character as he walks away laughing about the win. Magnus continues to be booked strongly as he wins a gauntlet match once again, throwing Sting out, and now he's on track for a world title tournament. The main event Mafia decide to break up because the Aces and Eights are not a threat anymore. The seeds are continuing to be sown here as Magnus claims he'll go through all his former main event Mafia partners until he is the world champion of the tournament. He's verging on being a heel, but he's not quite there yet. Magnus continues to get loads of mic time. He's always been a good talker, but the crowd just don't seem to react well to anything he says. I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe the fans just can't relate to anything he has to say. Most of them think dressing up smart means washing the grease out of your clothes on a Friday night. Dixie says this world title tournament will help her find her new TNA champion. She needs a new champion since her feud with AJ Styles where he's taken the belt and left the company, so Dixie is set to crown a new champion. It seems clear that it won't be Samoan Joe because Dixie Carter isn't getting along with him. The next big match for Magnus is a Falls Count Anywhere match with the Angry Samoan. Magnus wins it for yet another big win in his career. In the meantime, one of the greatest segments in TNA history takes place, the funeral of the Aces and Eights. For some reason, every single wrestler gets to say something funny, apart from Magnus. What, did it get cut from the show or something? How are you going to have 6 people talk and not have Magnus say a single word? He really needed some time on the mic to be entertaining too. Next up for Magnus in this tournament is Perk Angle, but first, a promo battle. Basically, Angle claims that Magnus doesn't have what it takes because he keeps complaining that he's injured. Magnus says he has the heart of a champion, a kind of generic promo. He needs some catchphrases and emotion. The match with Angle will be a last man standing match because the Wheel of Dixie. You'd think this would be good, but it's so slow and you're just waiting for something to happen. Highlights were an elbow drop off the apron from Magnus and a top rope overhead suplex from Angle. Bobby Roode cheats and interferes, taking out Kurt Angle. This is because Roode doesn't like Angle, and that's how Magnus wins this one. Unfortunately, that's going to be a sign of things to come. At least he is now in the finals with Jeff Hardy. Magnus cuts a pre-match promo kissing Jeff Hardy's ass and talking about how great he is. This rambling feels like it goes on forever and the crowd are still in virtual silence for Magnus. Dixie Carter talks to both the title contenders before their big match. There just isn't much heat, it's more and more ass kissing as Magnus praises Jeff for putting food on his table and he says Hardy is the #1 guy in wrestling and he must beat Hardy to prove a point to himself. Dixie says that they'll fight in a Dixieland match. If you're wondering what a Dixieland match is, it's a steel cage match combined with a ladder match. She invites them both to have a drink with her in a private hotel, and both guys look like confused camels. Hardy seemingly meets up with her as the show goes off the air before the pay-per-view. I guess she's backing Hardy because he's the more experienced champion. Final resolution will be the site of the Dixieland match. It's not even a proper pay-per-view, it's just a television special. But first, yet another promo. Can't complain about the amount of mic time he's been getting. He certainly had the opportunity to impress. He says to him wrestling is about women or money, it's about pride, honour and dignity. He claims Jeff Hardy's in bed with Dixie Carter, a place a lot of my viewers seemingly want to be. I have to admit he does quite a good job planting the seeds that Hardy is being secretly backed by Dixie Carter, even though it seems fairly unbelievable. Magnus demands an explanation and correctly points out 10-10-10, that time when Hardy was a heel. He accuses Jeff Hardy of selling out to Hulkamania in the past. Hardy basically says it's none of his business and doesn't answer if he's in bed with Dixie. Interesting. Eventually he says he only met up with her because he was considering his future. It still seems like Dixie is backing Hardy. The big question is, will the Dixieland match be as bad as it sounds? It's basically a tame cage match to start out. Both guys take turns missing dives. It's all just Jeff Hardy. Eventually Hardy ends up on the top of the cage and nails Magnus with a whisper in the wind. This leads to both men escaping the cage. Magnus has to fight off EC3 at the same time. Hardy also attacks EC3, showing that he's not aligned with Dixie after all. Clearly has the match won and climbs the ladder, when out of nowhere, Rockstar Spud shoves the ladder over. And just like that, that's how Magnus wins his TNA World Heavyweight title, with loads and loads of help in a very unconvincing manner. He's had all these high profile matches with the stars, but I can barely remember a thing that he's even done. And this collection of people, Spud, EC3, Dixie and Magnus, would all become known as the Dixieland faction. I think you're probably starting to understand why people hate this run. We haven't even got to the worst bit yet. The Dixieland faction decide to throw their new champion a coronation. He is the first British World Heavyweight Champion in over 100 years, and they're very proud of this fact. This promo is probably one of his better ones. He looks and feels like a champion, and now he's being embraced as a heel. It's a lot better. He's got more energy and the crowd is finally reacting. Gunnar immediately wants to cash in his world title shot briefcase, and this is where it starts falling apart. They have a fight, and Gunnar clearly has the beating of him, but it's the numbers game. Then AJ Styles returns with his TNA World title, and we suddenly have two champions. AJ wants to fight him, but Magnus is scared. AJ calls Magnus a fast champion and says he's not the world champion until he beats AJ. He keeps calling Magnus a baby who's leaning on Dixie too much. He also says the people don't consider Magnus to be a true heavyweight champion. They agree to have a fight next week with the two belts on the line. Dixie says that match isn't happening, but Magnus grows a backbone suddenly and says if it doesn't happen, he'll leave TNA along with AJ. This is one of the only times Magnus is his own man and seems like he has a point to prove. Sadly it won't stay that way, but so far it's fine. Dixie agrees to give Styles a one-night contract so the match can happen, but only if the match is a no DQ match. Like a complete dumbass, AJ agrees to the stipulation. He calls Magnus a paper champion. This is a term which Magnus would find difficult to shed. Crowds would chant paper champion every time they saw Magnus. Throughout the night, Dixie Carter was seen taking care of anybody who was friends of AJ Styles. This match is seen as a huge turning point for TNA for a number of reasons. Given everything that's on the line, Magnus sure doesn't seem to be in any sort of hurry to face Styles as he limps around the ring on the outside. He's done literally nothing at this point in this match. He climbs in the ring only for Rockstar Spud and EC3 to run out and attack Styles. AJ beats them all up on his own. The tables do eventually turn as Magnus watches the beat down from outside the ring for some reason. I'm not sure why he doesn't join in. Sting saves AJ for now. Magnus yet again runs away. We come back from another break of Magnus in the ring, but immediately the bromance run out and attack Styles. They keep hitting their finishers, but Magnus can't get the free. Sting returns again to beat the Geek Squad up. AJ looks to Styles clash Magnus. Bad Influence immediately rush out to attack Styles. They also hit a finisher, and once again AJ can't be pinned. Oh, Hebner's now refusing to count the pin. What a mess. Hebner walks out on the match, but he's replaced. Another finisher from Bad Influence, it still doesn't get the free. Magnus has done literally not a single move in this match unless making pin covers counts. Styles and Sting get rid of Bad Influence. AJ grabs a hold of Magnus and is about to make him tap out when Bad Influence smack him one. AJ once again deals with them and hits Magnus with the Styles Clash, but no ref. That's apparently not enough interference though, because Bobby Roode is next. He hits AJ Styles with 3 finishers, whilst Magnus watches on giving orders for some reason. Why Magnus is unable to do a single fin this match, I'm completely unsure. And that's how Magnus wins, and just like that, AJ Styles would never wrestle for TNA again. Magnus is the undisputed champion in one of the most horrible world title matches of all time, and AJ is also done with TNA. Now whilst AJ being done with TNA is not the fault of Magnus, people still remember him from this horrible match, and they associate Magnus with the changing of the guard in TNA, and essentially the end of the program for a lot of people. AJ leaving was seen as the death of TNA. I have no idea why they decided to book Magnus like that, it was completely unacceptable. In less than 2 months, Magnus had beaten Samoa Joe, Sting, Kurt Angle and AJ Styles, yet none of those matches had put him on the map. Magnus moves on to tell Dixie Carter that everything is thanks to her and says she is the champion. He presents her with one of the belts. In case you're wondering, no, this does not count as an official title change. Sting is the only man left standing at this point, and he's rightfully calling Magnus a paper champion. He's never earned anything. Dixie Carter is unbearable at this point. She's all over the show. She thinks she's Vince McMahon. They're doing this Sting feud because Sting was the one who chose Magnus for the main event Mafia apparently. The only problem is we already saw this match, and it was a massive letdown last time. Sting gets Magnus to agree to a title defense by saying he's a little baby. It's agreed, but Sting's career will be on the line. Magnus says he's going to tear up Sting's contract when he wins, right in front of his stupid, painted face. Why do all Magnus's lines have to be lame? For some reason, TNA decided to do another takeover angle with a secret investor as Magnus argued with an attorney. How about doing some actual wrestling, Magnus? Well, we do get some wrestling now as Magnus has to defend his belt against Sting, along with constant loud paper champion chants. Oh no, here we go again. EC3 tries to interfere but he's stopped by Joe. Sting puts him in the Scorpion, only for 3 different people to save him. This time Joe takes them all out instead of Sting. A minute later, Sting nails a Scorpion death drop, but now Zema Ion drags the referee, and the rest of the bromance are here. What on earth were TNA smoking? It's an exact repeat of the AJ match. Who thought this was a good idea? Sting gets smacked out by 5 men. Perk Angle makes the save and hits ankle slams. The ring is cleared again, and Sting connects with a superplex and makes the pin, just a 2. Then there's a ref bump, but it's a no DQ match, so I'm not sure what the point was. Once again, Sting has the deathlock on, and just like the last match, Bobby Roode is the final man to run out. Magnus does actually finally hit a move in this match. Dixie marches a referee down to the ramp, and I have counted it. This marching takes 30 seconds, but somehow Sting doesn't kick out the pin, and Magnus wins. And just like that, Sting is gone from TNA, legitimately. He never wrestled another match for TNA. In the space of a few weeks, Magnus has beaten and removed both AJ Styles and Sting from TNA, and he hit the sum total of 3 moves in both those matches. A simply horrible time to be a TNA fan. None of these matches are making Magnus look good, they make him look like a failed replacement for AJ and Sting. Another horrible promo later, and Magnus is claiming that AJ Styles and Sting leaving is actually a good thing, because it makes room for the bromance to be stars. Kurt Angle still exists in TNA, and he also calls Magnus a paper champion. The crowd are in love with this chant. It's gotten really popular. It's just a shame that Magnus is yet to do anything to prove them wrong. Next up is a tag match where whoever gets the win becomes the number 1 contender. Magnus is made to tap out in just a few minutes to the Coquina Clutch. Seems a strange choice to have your champion tapping out, especially when he has a partner. Magnus desperately needs to look stronger here. But somehow the hits keep coming. Magnus has a singles match against Kurt Angle. Within 2 minutes, Angle gets the ankle lock on and Magnus is about to tap out, but EC3 saves him through DQ. Magnus really is a paper champion. Why did they set out to make their champion look as weak as possible? It's like some sort of sick joke. We're in England now, where you'd think they'd be happy to see a champion which represents them. No, they loudly scream boring throughout his promo. Even someone as low on the card as Gunnar is calling Magnus a paper champion. Magnus has been ducking that title match for a month or so. MVP turns out to be the mystery takeover man, and he's causing problems for Dixieland. Magnus claims that he is a legit badass and calls MVP a biatch. Who is writing these lines for him? We do get the match against Gunnar, and surely this is an opportunity for Magnus to look stronger. Gunnar isn't even a main eventer, and convincing win for Magnus here would do him wonders. Well, Magnus does fight this one on his own for a bit, so it's already better than the other ones, but ultimately, yet again, a bunch of people need to interfere. This distracts the ref so Magnus can hit Gunnar with the belt, but I guess it wasn't really felt as Gunnar kicks out. Then, for completely no reason, James Storm turns on Gunnar and takes him out, and that's how Magnus wins this match. I honestly don't even know what Magnus's finisher is at this point. Does he have one? This is appalling. Why couldn't he beat Gunnar without help? It just doesn't make any sense. For some reason this is still going, and Magnus' old friend Samoa Joe will be his next challenger. He has a mohawk, so it's not really going well for anybody at this time. This feud should have the strongest build out of any of the matches so far, because these two have a fair bit of history. Magnus talks about Joe for ages and it sends me to sleep. Joe gets the mic and shows what intensity and hype really looks like, whilst Magnus looks like he's going to cry. Joe promises to shed his blood and Magnus won't be able to walk out the match. The show goes off the air with Magnus pulling stupid faces and getting choked out. Lockdown 2014 will be Samoa Joe versus Magnus. It's by far the longest match for Magnus at 20 minutes. Before the match has begun, Taz on commentary says Magnus is a paper champion and I doubt he can win this match. They try to present this as a serious match where you can only win by submission or knockout. Samoa Joe is about to win by submission when an arm comes through the mat and drags Joe under the ring. I give up. The ninjas have come back. Samoa Joe returns with his eyes rolling into the back of his head like he's pushing out a huge turd in his nappy. Once again Joe is about to win the match when the arm comes back and it turns out the arm belongs to Abyss and he smacks Joe in the gut of his stick and Black Hole slams him. Magnus gives Abyss a beautiful smile as the crowd chant "You sold out." He puts Joe in a choke, Joe is knocked out and that's how Magnus wins. Simply horrible. If you look past the wacky arm coming from under the ring, it's yet another match which Magnus needed truckloads of help to win. It's completely ridiculous. Magnus moves on to boast about the reign of Magnus whilst MVP face palms. This whole thing has got to be an inside joke at this point. Abyss now has a disgusting coat covered in mould and apparently he's sold out and is motivated by money and he's Magnus' guy. This whole thing has become so unbelievable and wacky. Samoa Joe will get a rematch as he was screwed at Lockdown. Magnus reveals he's no longer associated with Dixie Carter because he got what he wanted out of that arrangement. It seems like they're teasing a feud with EC3, but that never happens. Anyway, the rematch with Samoa Joe, how's this one going to end? A herd of pit bulls are going to charge into the ring and bite Samoa Joe until Magnus can beat him, I suppose? Will I be less surprised with that happening than Magnus finding a win of his own doing? Ref bump. Abyss throws a chair in Joe's face and Magnus wins. Kill me. Taz says, great stuff. He's wrong. I swear I'm not trying to find issues with this main event run, they're just all over the place. Magnus and Abyss tag up to take on the Slapnut team of the Wolves. Eddie Slapnut Edwards taps him out in seconds. Why is he losing to random tag team wrestlers? He's supposed to be the damn heavyweight champion. Abyss goes from Predator Coat to Corporate Kane because he's associated with Winner. Magnus tells Abyss something he's been longing to hear his whole life. He loves him. I know he's just saying this to keep his bodyguard on side, but come on. And why are they already on the verge of falling out a couple of weeks after getting together? It's decided that there's going to be a four-way match. Samoa Joe, Eric Young and known comedy wrestler Magnus. No, I haven't got that the wrong way round. Abyss has the four-way match won, but he doesn't make the pin because Magnus tells him that he loves him again. Abyss smiles with happiness as Magnus drops the elbow for the free. Simply horrible yet again. EY, Eric Young, wins a Battle Royal and he will go one-on-one with the champion with everyone barred from ringside. And bear in mind, Eric Young has already wrestled in this Battle Royal at the start of the night, so Magnus has the advantage. Because Young is pulling double duty. It's a 13-minute match. Magnus does cheat with a smack to the slash zone behind the ref's back, but he can't get the win. Has he considered trying an actual move to beat Eric Young? Young hits a pile driver, and in a complete shock moment, Eric Young wins the TNA Heavyweight title, ending a horrible, disgusting title reign for this paper champion. Thank God. EY winning the title was reportedly because Daniel Bryan was dominating around the same time, and they both had big beards. Seems legit. So Magnus wasn't able to win a single match without ridiculous levels of help. Magnus and Abyss would split up straight after this. They had a match against each other, but Magnus decided to kick the monster in the nutsack for the DQ. Magnus did get a rematch for the title with Eric Young at Sacrifice. People in the crowd are seen visibly yawning and leaning over the railing looking bored. It just doesn't really feel like a closing match for a TNA pay-per-view, does it? Eric Young wins with the pile driver and an elbow drop. Nice to see Eric Young's elbow drop finisher is so much more effective than Magnus' elbow drop finisher. At least I think it's his finisher. Magnus went back to the mid-card, mostly doing the JOB. The whole world title reign seems like someone's sick idea to create the worst possible title reign. There was just nothing good about it. I have no idea why they did this to him, because in the NWA he would prove that he could carry a company. I'm glad Magnus is doing better now as Nick Aldis. He's in the WWE as a general manager. I'm sure they'll have him wrestling again one day. And hopefully he'll be getting better than this run had to offer. Apart from looking the part and being able to talk confidently, there was nothing else to say. Every match he won was only due to boatloads of help. They called him a paper champion and never did anything to help him shed that stigma. The matches weren't very exciting, and as mentioned earlier, although it wasn't his fault, people associate Magnus with the end of TNA, because it was the end of Sting and AJ Styles. Magnus as a main eventer was terrible. I'm not sure I've ever seen worse, and if you don't agree with that, I'll see a body taken away in a hearse.